Hello guys, welcome back to the next tutorial. So in this one we're going to start with CSS selectors, and it's going to be a series because I want to discuss CSS selectors in a little bit more detail. So let's get quickly started. Let me just quickly open the demo store so we know Xcard thing. That's what we're going to work on for the CSS selector as well. So basically we know for working with Selenium WebDriver and automating the web pages, the first thing we need to find is the elements, right? And how we can locate elements is by all the different ways that's available, right? XPath, CSS selectors, IDs, and all different ways. So after we find the elements, then only we can perform some action. So in this one, we're gonna start looking for elements using the CSS selectors. I'm gonna just start with the basics that we can literally just replace the IDs and the class just with the CSS selectors. So we're gonna see that. So let's quickly take a look, and let me just open the Firebug and let's see. So in one of our tutorial we looked at this one, right? We looked at the title and we tried to find this element using the class and those kind of things, right? So what I wanted to show you is that we can replace these as well with our CSS selectors. So let's quickly find some ID right now and let's replace the ID. So this one, this input, this is a text box to search anything. So this has an ID called substring dash default. So what we can do is we can replace this as well with the CSS selector. So it doesn't mean that we have to do it. If we are just having a unique ID, we can just simply use it, but I just wanted to show you the extent of CSS selectors. So let's just quickly bring up the Eclipse and see it. So this is the class that I created, find by CSS part 1, which is P1, and it has got nothing, just going to the demo store. So basically just getting the base URL, just those things, maximizing the window, and that's it. So let's take a look at it. Driver dot find element and by dot. So we've already looked at class name, ID, link text name, partial link text, right? So all these things we've already looked. So let's take a look at right now CSS selector by CSS selector. And since we're trying to find an ID, the ID is substring default, right? What we can do is we can just simply say in the quotes hash and then substring dash default. I think that was the ID, right? And then we can maybe, what we want to do, we want to type something, right? So we want to send some keys. So send keys, and let's search for iPhone, maybe that's it. So that's pretty much it. So what we can do is this thing. One thing I wanted to explain you guys is in CSS there are two very special characters and they have very important role to play. So one is hash or the pound and dot. So dot, basically a dot, right? So let me just wrap it in the inverted colon so you understand it, right? So these two are really important. So hash means ID and dot means class. So these are really important. So when I said hash, it means it's gonna look for ID, which is substring default, and as soon as I do that, it's gonna find the ID for all the elements which has this ID. So it's going to look for all the elements that share the same ID. If you have multiple elements with this ID, it's going to find multiple elements and it's not going to be effective, right? So just make sure that you're looking for a unique one. If it's the unique ID, it's just going to find it and work as we expect, right? So let's try to run this code and let's see. So run as Java application, right? So it's just going to bring up the browser demo store, and in search items it should just type iPhone, and that's what it did, right? It just typed iPhone. That's what we wanted to do. So let's quickly close the browser right now and let's see that happens, right? So there are multiple ways of doing it. Instead of saying that, I could just do this as well. It's just another way of doing that CSS selector. So driver.find element, or maybe you know what, I'll just copy it just to save some time typing things. So just that, and right now what I did is I just typed ID substring default. It was just the one element, unique element, so it found it. But if you guys notice, this is an input type, right? let's say there are multiple elements with the same ID and I'm looking for a specific one for the which has a type input. So it's an input box, it's a tag, right? So if I wrap this around like that, so let's wrap it up. If I say input, right, and substring default, so what it's gonna do is it has a special meaning. It's gonna find all the elements on a web page which are of the type input and they have the ID substring default. So if you want to restrict the elements to a particular tag, you can just append it, not append it, prepend it actually. So kind of that. So you can just put it before the ID, right? So this thing is just going to find all the elements with the ID substring default and type input. So I can just comment this one out for right now and again try to run this code. So if I run this code, it's just gonna again do the same thing. Basically I just wanted to show you that it works perfectly fine the way it worked before, right? So it again typed iPhone and it searched for it. So let's again quickly close the browser and get back to it. Now there's one more way to do this thing. So I just wanted to show you all the ways so that you guys are not confused and looking for things. So the other way to do is, let's just quickly copy this again in the interest of time. Copy this and paste it. Another way to do it is what I can do is I can say input and then bracket and then ID equals to substring default, right? And then close the bracket. This is another way to do it. So which brings you to another point that even if it's an ID or something else, you can just find it, right? So let's say there's an element called some other element and it has a name, maybe something like that. Yeah, so let's say it has a name substring. If this is unique, it's gonna find that as well. So we can see that as well. So right now let's just quickly run this and wrap this up. It's just gonna find it and just type it, right? So iPhone, and it's done. It typed the iPhone in the search box. So what I wanted to show you is, because we're just using one more way, it's a CSS selector, right? I can just cover that part. So we use the name as well, right? We use the name. So there was by name as well. There is one way to find by name. So by dot name, right? You guys already know about this one. So if I put name something, the name of the element, it's just gonna find it, right? Instead of that, what I can do is I can just say by CSS selector input, instead of ID I can say name, and I can just find the name of that, which is substring. So I'm just gonna remove the default part from here. So the name is substring and send case iPhone. So it should also work the same way. Just open the browser and come up here and it should just type iPhone, right? That's what we wanted to do. So what I wanted to show you guys is that CSS selector is really powerful. We can just use normal CSS with IDs and all those things. We can type in this manner as well, and then we can type in input, the tag, and then in the brackets the attribute. So ID is an attribute, right? And this way, and then we can just say names as well. So it can just be used instead of finding by name. We can just find using this as well. So this is pretty much it, guys. This is the first lecture. There's gonna be a couple of more on CSS selectors. So I would just say practice this and come back with the questions if you have any. So thanks for ending this one, guys. Stay tuned for the next one. Thanks, guys.